Hi there, it's Helen from Mama's Country Kitchen. Today we'll be making a chicken ragu, which is a childhood favourite of mine. It's a dish that I grew up with and now my children are being brought up with it too. So there are onions, garlic, oregano, salt, pepper, some spices, olive oil, basata and of course some chicken. Today we'll be using lovely legs. I like the flavour it imparts with the bone in there. You can also make this dish with chicken thigh fillets. It's just a matter of what you find on the day at the markets. Let's do it. Okay, first thing we do is cut up our onions and garlic and fresh oregano. So I wish I could tell you a little party trick about how not to cry with onions, but even though I cook every day, I still find myself shedding a tear or two. But generally I find this is a good way of minimising the tears. Okay, and then just cut the tops. And the red onion. I'll tell you a little bit about this dish. As I said, it's a childhood favourite. It's a very traditional Greek recipe, and we used to love it with either roast potatoes or with pasta. Today I'll be doing it with pasta because that's the way my kids like to eat it. But it's just a real comfort food. It's traditionally a winter warmer dish, but really we love it any time of the year. It doesn't have to be too perfect or too finely chopped. Okay, I need a tissue, some onions, I tell you what. Okay, now we do the other one. This is also a great dish to make during the week because it really doesn't take long. You can sort of have dinner on the table within half an hour, 40 minutes. And it's also good to do as a meal prep recipe as well. Okay. So first step is to put your heat to a medium-high heat and pour in about 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Okay. And then throw in your onions. There we go. Okay, so while that's starting to cook, we'll chop up the onion. Of course, handy party trick with onion to clean it is just to lightly crush it and the skin loosens from the actual clove, which makes it easier to then peel off. Voila. So light. You can sort of hear it cracking there. That's the magic sound you want to hear, which tells us that it has loosened. There we go. And again, it doesn't have to be too perfect with the cutting. Just a good chop is more than enough for this because it will cook down into the food. And just a little bit that way. My recipe of this has 2 to 3 cloves of garlic. I always put 3. However, if you don't really like that garlicky taste, feel free to put 2. 2 is more than enough to have enough flavour in the dish. Okay, back to the chicken. I'll just grab my trusty wooden spoon and stir this about. Every time I cook anything with onion, like this, just this initial saute, it just brings me back to all these beautiful dishes growing up. We just let that cook. The key with the onion is we want it browned but not yet caramelised. So it is important to give it a good stir occasionally to make sure that we don't get the caramelisation. Okay, so now the onion has browned, it's starting to soften up, become translucent, so it's time to pop in the garlic. Okay, and give that a stir for about another minute. Just being careful not to burn that garlic. I love this smell. Okay. So here is just about 1.5 kilos of lovely legs. You can, as I said before, substitute it for chicken thigh fillets. And the key here is to saute them enough that they brown and also get a little caramelisation around the edges. It just gives so much flavour to the dish. And while this is starting to brown, we'll just get our fresh oregano ready. Let's get this oregano ready. All we do here is just pluck the leaves. They will wilt in the pot, so we don't have to be too precious about things here. About a tablespoon is lovely. You can of course substitute the fresh oregano with dry oregano again. I just like the little bit of colour that it gives to the dish. We grow a lot of fresh herbs on our property, including fresh oregano, thyme, rosemary, parsley. So I use them wherever I possibly can. Give it a rough chop just to get the oils out. And that's good to go. Back to the pot. Okay, this chicken's looking really good. You can see the lovely can't say that word, caramelisation. See all that brown part? That's all flavour. It is quite a rustic dish, this one, but it's so delicious. Okay, this is ready for the spices. Let's get those spices. Sea salt, a really good pinch. It's about a teaspoon or so. Of course, we'll test it later on to adjust it, if it needs it, that is. A good dash of black pepper. And then about a teaspoon of cinnamon. It's lovely adding the cinnamon now because it will become a lot more fragrant as it cooks. And lucky last, a good dash of some ground cloves. And then stir again. I wish you could smell this, it's unreal. Yeah. And now we'll put the passata. Let's see if I can open it. Oh, okay, I got it. Now we pour a jar of this in, or tinned tomatoes, or if it's tomato season, you can put some live Roma tomatoes in there too. And of course, we don't want to lose all the good bits. So what I do, this is my measuring cup. I fill this up and pour that in as well. Okay, and to cut through the acidity of all that tomato, just a pinch of sugar. Before the final step to have this ready for simmer is just to pop in the oregano. There we go. Final stir, and it's ready to cook away. Now what we'll do is we'll just let it sit and simmer for about half an hour, and at that point the salsa will be lovely and thick and ready for serving. Okay, this chicken ragu is great with pasta. It's generally the way I serve it up. It's the way my family love it. It can also be made with rice or some just plain white rice, or also with some crunchy potatoes. A bit more. Okay. Okay, just checking the chicken. The salsa has thickened beautifully. It's just got probably another 10 minutes to go, which means that it's time to finish off the pasta. Okay, the water's come to the boil now. I like using penne pasta. Just popping the whole packet in there and giving it a good stir. So we want the pasta to be al dente, which is when it's got just a little bite left to it. It's not completely soft. My dad actually loves it completely soft, but I don't, so I don't cook it that way. I think it's much nicer. My family we all like it this way. So it does continue to cook just that little fraction longer once the salsa is placed on the top of it, and it holds its shape wonderfully as well. And then of course we'll drain it and it's ready to go as the base for our chicken ragu. Okay, so the pasta's ready to drain. So what I always do is drain it, reserving just a little bit of water down the bottom. And then, don't do that, kids at home. And then pop it back in there. Okay, then coming to the actual ragu, you can see how beautiful this salsa is. It's just beautiful. It's thickened, it's a wonderful red colour. And so what we need to do is to just put some of this salsa into the pasta, just so it coats the penne beautifully. And just pop it in with the penne. And then just stir this about. And just like that, we're ready to plate up. And there. This one here. Okay, let's do this. This recipe is for 6 people, so we do a generous serving of pasta and then add some chicken. Naturally being pasta, finish it off with a sprinkle of parmesan and garnish for a little bit of colour, just a sprig of oregano. And there you have it, my chicken ragu.